Best-selling author and American psychologist Mary Pfeiffer said this: "We live in a world filled with language. Language imparts identity, meaning, and perspective to our human community. Writers are either polluters or part of the cleanup team. Just as the language of power and greed has the potential to destroy us, the language of reason and empathy has the power to save us. Writers can inspire a kinder, fairer, more beautiful world, or invite selfishness, stereotyping, and violence. Writers can unite people or divide them." In this book show podcast, host, confidence coach Susan Axelrod asks women authors a simple question: which kind of writer are you? She invites each guest to step into the confidence zone to proclaim how her book can inspire. If you are seeking inspiration to create your legacy, take out your pen and pad. Your book, My Time, starts now. Hello, friends. I hope you have your pen and pad ready, because today's discussion will be relevant for our times. I'm delighted to be speaking today with author Christabel Choi, who wrote a book called Rice Paper Window. I came across Christabel on social media talking about her book, and as I often do, I say, "Hey, I have a book show podcast and I'd love to speak with you." The difference is she said yes, and she has shown up. Once I started researching what her book was about, I realized why. Christabel Choi's writing is inspired by treks over snowy mountain passes, tall ships on the high seas, transcontinental trains, and at least one circumnavigation of the globe. She grew up in rural Oregon in a close family hailing from 4 continents. She settled in the San Francisco Bay Area with her husband, father, and alternately one or all of her 3 children. Her office is filled with bows, arrows, horse tack, piles of paper and books, scattered projects, a dog, and a cat. Her life motto: leave it better than she found it. Except for her office, where maintenance is a noble enough goal. This book is a memoir. And as I spoke with her getting ready for this podcast conversation, I realized that this book is one for our time. Hello, Christabel. Thank you so much for joining me today.
Hi. Nice to meet you. Thank you for having me on, and I'm really pleased to be here.
It's absolutely a pleasure. I really have spent a little time chatting with you to get to know you personally, but also hearing the topics, the subjects, and really the purpose and mission of your book. And honestly, as I've said to you several times now, personally, it's so relevant for this day. But I want to ask you to share the story behind your story, which I know starts 35 years ago. So what is the story behind the story of this book?
35 years ago, which I did not expect to be relevant today, but is. I was a student in South Korea, and when I arrived, I realized that my classmates and my housemates were basically holding the government accountable in its transition from dictatorship to democracy. And I knew that was important, and it was something as an American I'd never experienced as a kid growing up in the 70s and 80s. And so I kept a careful journal. And at the same time, I realized that I was encountering this culture fresh and new for the first time. And that was also important. And so I recorded learning how to eat, learning how to make my bed, learning how to get around, how to negotiate with my housemates without language because I didn't speak Korean, and
Mm.
and learning Korean for the first time. So all of that was something also that I wanted to share with people so that they could also learn how to, say, drop into a new culture, um, and see it as something fresh and interesting rather than exotic or strange.
Well, also that portends the opposite, which is people coming fresh and new into our culture.
Yes.
Today we
Yes.
call them immigrants, right? And so you had that experience over there. And
And having
so,
compassion for somebody who's coming into this culture the same way, I think if we can see ourselves going, being the stranger, we can understand the experience of a stranger coming in.
right, exactly. As I said in my intro, I mean, we're already deep into topics that are the basis of discussion of our time.
Yeah.
So, 35 years ago, you're over there as a student and you have something in your book bag with you that turned into a seminal piece of your story. What was that?
So I was doing Soviet studies and Russian studies as part of my undergraduate work. And so I had a copy of the Communist Manifesto in my bag. At the time, you could be arrested, you could be disappeared for being caught with a copy of the manifesto. And at some point, I actually offered it to a Korean friend, and they suddenly changed the topic. They moved away. They did not want, even though they were very interested in it, there was no way they wanted to be connected with that at all. It was dangerous. And
Did you like not did you not know that?
I didn't realize the severity of having a book. It just was such a foreign idea that having a book or having said something that was not favorable to the government would be dangerous. I just didn't have that experience.
I mean, honestly, it really brings chills to my whole body. It's like an electric magnetic pulse to my whole body that we're talking about something that happened 35 years ago, about which you say that was a foreign idea to me. It never occurred to
Mhm.
me. So you have a book in your bag. So what? It doesn't matter what the topic is. I get to walk around my country freely
Mhm.
with freedom of expression. And yet again, here we are 35 years later, where we know very well books have already been banned here in this country. And it is possible that you could get arrested in the future for carrying a book around with you. I mean, Christabel, it's like, I don't know, it's like from then till now. I don't know
Yes.
what even to say about this.
I would not I would not want to give or encourage a friend visiting from overseas to have a copy of the Communist Manifesto in their bag today coming into America.
Mm,
And was not carrying it because I had any political affiliation. I was studying it. You know, I
mm.
wanted to know
As a
what is this
student,
about. I was a student and it was my study, but I still there were students in Korea who had been arrested for reading Jane Eyre or Jane
right,
Austen, one of those, probably both of
right.
them,
Yeah.
because they needed to arrest somebody. They needed to show they were arresting communists, and they said, "Well, you're reading foreign literature." So that's
Wow.
the martial law that these students were coming out of. They had just toppled the dictatorship 2 years earlier, and the elected president was just following in the same dictatorial footsteps. And they just said, "No, no."
Mm, yeah. So the bio, the brief bio says that the memoir
Mm.
is both the coming of age story of a sensitive young woman and the portrait of a country struggling to emerge from decades of occupation, war, and authoritarian rule into one of peace, democracy, and prosperity. And again, in this day and age, at the time that we're recording this, though this video will live on for years beyond the difficult times that we currently face, we're speaking out history of our time in this conversation. And I just want to ask you, as you were writing this book, and basically you had a journal from 35 years ago, you
Mhm.
took it out, you were reading and reviewing your journal and compiling it into this memoir. I mean, what was that like? A part of the story under the story. What was that like? That experience.
To relive, or I guess in some ways I relived it. In some ways, I reconnected with some people who I didn't necessarily know at that time, but who I had a friend who used to sit in the cafes and cut out newspaper articles. So I contacted him and asked him because I wanted to confirm. And There were things I didn't understand at the time. I saw a demonstration. It was a big demonstration. There were signs that said "Yankee, go home" or "freedom" or the not subtitle, the surtitle on the cover of my book. There's something in Korean, which spoiler alert. Anyway, it says "Don't shoot tear gas at us," and that was one of the major banners that was up at that time. In fact, that was what rather than rallying around political causes, the Korean people in 87, one of their successes, the thing they found could bring everybody together was that they had children who were students who were getting tear gas shot at them. And the tear gas being used in Korea at that time was far more potent than the tear gas that they exported to other countries.
Oh
So
my gosh.
on their own people, they were using really, really toxic chemicals. Where the tear gas was shot, the birds were no longer in the trees were dying, and people were having a lot of illnesses that were connected to the tear gas. So that's what people rallied around. That was the common point. Whatever your politics, you could rally around, stop attacking your own people.
Mm, wow.
So,
I mean, honestly, this is, when I first contacted you, I really didn't know what your book was about. I was just happy to be speaking with you and interviewing an author. But as we have begun our discussions and we're continuing it here now in real time, it really is chilling. So I really do want to ask you. The second question I talk to authors about is, why is your book worth my time? And inevitably, in this podcast series, the value and the worth of the time is completely obvious right from the outset. That you have a book that shows the extent of impact of things that we are facing today really is absolutely incredible. You told me a story about Parliament and people in business and what happened at that time. And I was wondering if you would share that story now.
okay, so last fall, um, the president of Korea, so the Korea has been a democracy now for the last 35 years. And last fall, the president was being investigated for corruption. And so he declared martial law. That was his way of shutting down this investigation. And he did it in the middle of the night when Parliament wasn't there. But it was apparently early enough that men, especially, or people were coming home from their businesses after their mandatory going out for the evening with the boss. If the boss wants to go out, you go out with them. And so they were all coming back from these meetings, and they heard the news that martial law had been declared. And these are the people that were my classmates 35 years ago. And they turned around, they got off the subways, they got off their buses, they turned around, they headed toward Parliament, and they made sure that the parliamentary members could get back into Parliament to vote against the declaration of martial law. They just basically said, "We've got this. We're prepared for this. We've been here. We've done this. We are not going backwards." And by morning, the people had rallied and were around Parliament. But these people, they helped Parliament get in. There were parliamentarians jumping over the fences, and they were almost excited, ironically, because they're like, "Yes, we are prepared for this. We've done this
We,
before." And
right. We
not
were made for times such as these.
we were made for times such as these. And the congressional aides, I guess, or parliamentary aides, were standing in front of the soldiers. The soldiers had been activated and told that they were going to be fighting North Koreans, that they were fighting communists. And so they're like 75 years of ceasefire, and they thought it started. Here we are. And so they're ready to go, but their officers told them not to load their guns. So they get to Parliament, and thank God they didn't do that, because the officers knew something is wrong. We do not need. We have to comply. Our president has told us to act to mobilize, but we don't need to start another massacre. And which, if you've read the Nobel Prize winner Hangang, she writes about Gwangju, where there was a government massacre against and when they declared martial law. Yeah, so the parliamentarian aides were just telling the soldiers, no, stop. What are you doing? Shame on you. These are your people. And the soldiers are realizing we're not fighting North Koreans. This is politically motivated. It's not an actual threat. And they were just bowing and apologizing and bowing and apologizing. And it ended. And the president is now arrested. And
So, just to be clear, you said last fall. Now, remember, this conversation that we're having will be recorded for all time. So, I want to say that was the fall of 2024.
yes, November
And
2024. Yeah.
right, November 2024. We happen to be recording this in 2025. The subject matter that we are discussing, however, is timeless by witness of your experiences in today's terms 35 years ago. We just said quite clearly that never in a million years did you ever imagine that 35 years hence, which is now, the topics would be timely, relevant, completely pertinent to the times that we're living in.
Yeah.
So I want to ask you, but I wanted to just take a moment to touch on what you said, which was the business owners who heard that martial law had been declared. It's midnight and they're going home because they had to meet with their bosses, etc. They went to the parliament because they were the adults now who had been the students then. And I
Yes.
want to really like point out, there will be people who are 25 years old listening to this today. They are going to be those business owners in the future, right?
Yes.
And so on and so forth. Now, I want to ask. I really want to talk about what are you going to do with this work? We talked a little bit about your work as a speaker. So I want to ask you to share with us if you were going to be speaking somewhere. What would that look like? What would you want to speak about? How would you use your book, etc.?
I think in some part it depends on what the audience needs. But I would love to go and speak. I do travel a lot, and I'm likely to be in whatever country or area that somebody lives in, and even yours. I expect to be there in the fall. Um, and I would love to come and speak. I'd love to answer questions, exchange stories, and explore how we can use history as a blueprint for moving forward, uh,
Mm.
either to repeat it or not repeat it. For example, the Koreans they are now in a state of prosperity and they're becoming very popular worldwide and democracy and peace at this time. So, how can we use history as a blueprint moving forward? How can we use the warnings of history? How is it relevant? And we don't need to reinvent the wheel. We can see what others have done or what we did 25 years ago in the case of the
Right.
people.
I
Um,
mean, honestly, you literally said at the beginning that they were fighting for democracy, 35 years ago. And you said then later there had been a democracy for 30 to 35 years. And then you said when martial law was declared just last year, the people who had known life before democracy under an autocratic rule, let's say, but had been living in democracy for decades now, they knew the assignment. As the
yeah,
expression goes today, they
yeah,
understood the assignment. And the assignment was we are not going back and we are going to go now and fight in various ways. Fight means different things. We're going to show up and we're going to fight for the democracy and you just said of peace and prosperity that
yes,
we live in now. So I really love this idea. Now, we talked about the idea that you could lead writing groups. I really want to say using your book and
mhm,
this deep, deep and deeply personal experience that you've had. Even we talked about what it was like to take your journal entries from then and go through it today. It really must have been a little bit like out of body experience for you to be reading that in this day and age of
Yeah.
today. Do you know what I mean? Was it
Yes.
like that a little bit?
I worried that it would be sort of just outdated and old fashioned. K-pop has taken over, didn't exist when I was there. And as I was revising, literally, I was revising as all of this was playing out. And I was like, wow, this is so relevant to today. And I really, I like was dreaming about what happened and what's happening. And it was sort of synthesizing in my thoughts. And, what's the other? Oh, in an interesting coincidence, my son has just gone to Korea and he is living in the same boarding house where
Wow.
I lived. So literally the week that my book came out, my son is in Korea right now. And so my boarding house actually was at a Buddhist temple. They
Oh,
were behind the university. They had extra rooms. They let them out to students. And I was one of those students. Of course, now the monk cell that I lived in has become an apartment and my son is living in luxury.
yeah.
My But the same monks that I knew are now taking care of my son.
Oh my gosh, that's crazy.
And so that coming together. So now he's sending me pictures and I'm saying, can you get a picture of this? Can you get a picture of that? What does it look like now compared to my
Wow.
picture? Actually,
Wow.
I should send him my photos and get, then and now comparisons.
I mean, honestly, honestly, you and I was asking you in the green room before we came on, like, what are your intentions? What do you want to do with this? And now you've just defined a really spectacular audio, visual opportunity of then and now, and then and now, and then and now. So we'll talk about that offline.
But
But
also, I think using memoir to tell an important story is something that I would like to help people with. I think that's partly my writing groups. I take anything that people are working on that you've had hiding in your drawers or wished you could get out, a family story, a personal story, fiction, nonfiction, but how to use those stories that you have to really tell something important without
you know,
without it overwhelming the story, with it being integral to the story and choosing
right.
these themes.
I
And being
mean, honestly, Heather Cox Richardson today, I believe that her popularity is in part because of her quiet style, the opposite of mine. But her quiet style engenders trust. But mostly, just like Doris Kearns Goodwin before her,
Mhm.
she's doing exactly. I wrote it down. I'm taking notes from our conversation. Use history as a blueprint going forward. It's literally why she has millions of followers around the world, because she is doing that exact same thing. And here, in a ironic twist, like you pulled out the journal and you said, oh, is this going to be old, is this even going to be relevant anymore? But now you're having a completely different message, which is, wow, here's a blueprint. And the Korea of today is a far cry from the Korea of those days. Here in our country, in the United States, where we both are, we are going the opposite way.
Yeah,
And so we are here speaking out, really to invite people to understand history is a blueprint for going forward. Now, we have a bit of a different outlook. We have different technology. We have an evolutionary consciousness. We have tools that we never imagined that we would have in the past. But still, in all, in some ways,
mhm,
humanity plays out and replays the same, overtures and themes again and again. And that's why I feel this is so important. I want to say, the last question that I ask of all authors is, what do you want people to do as a result of reading your book? And clearly, I can say I want them to bring you in as a speaker.
I would
And
love to do
is
that.
that what you want?
Yes. Yes, I would love to come as a speaker and facilitate these conversations. And I talk about the book, I'll read from the book, but also I want to help people think about what their part is in helping this country have that democracy and peace and prosperity.
I attended something last night called a teach-in. It
Okay.
was a good trouble teach-in. And it comes to me very clearly that this is something that you really could use. Is it's like a teach-in where you are reading from your book, you're speaking on the thematic elements of your book, you're helping people understand that we can use history as a blueprint going forward, while also at the same time really offering teach-ins, really offering edification and structure for people to do something today, because I'm on social prolifically for my business. And the one thing, the like energy of our time is, what can I do? What
Yes.
can I do?
There's something really important with not just pointing out a problem and then leaving it out there for people to be agitated and stressed and anxious. You see things, outrageous things on social media that are just left without any grounding, any direction. And in fact, that's dangerous, because if you're left with all those heavy or intense feelings, then you're wide open to somebody telling you, do this with it, do that with it. But you need to be able to. I think that when I'm thinking like there are lots of Karen videos, there are lots of the outrageous things that are being happening, say in the government or whatever, that it raises all the important feelings that we have, but we need to know what we can do with them, and be in control of what we do with those feelings.
I mean, I'm literally having heart palpitations right now because I'm very in embodiment through my qigong, and also through consciousness, and also through my journey of commitment to being in the mind body experience
Mm.
for the expression of today. And so, honestly, what you just spoke out, inevitably, every podcast conversation I have, I want to speak directly to the listeners and viewers and say, stop here and replay back 3 minutes and listen to what Christabel just spoke out, because perpetrating fear mongering stories out without any quote direction, without any grounding, without any structure, it literally is perpetrating something on our autonomic nervous systems. And
Mm-hmm.
so you are offering a structure, some productivity, a project that you can literally help people to understand. Here's a book you can read. There's conversations that you can have. There's thematic elements of support for where you might want to be today. And, here's some outcomes that you can do as a result. I
Mm.
really mean this. I want to say thank you for whatever it took you to uh, resurrect the journal, for get through writing a book. You and I talked about before we came, on air, that you could talk to people about what it takes to get a book out of you. I want to have that conversation another time,
Mm.
because it is important. But I want to say thank you for doing that. This really, truly turns out to be a book of our time. Whoever imagined a memoir from 35 years ago would be so relevant,
Yeah.
but would also offer a true opportunity for impact in our times. So, how can people get in touch with you? Do you want to share your email here?
Yeah, I can give my email is Christabel, the name, at att.net. Um,
And where can they find the book?
uh, or sorry, and you can also find me on Facebook. You can friend me on Facebook, or yeah. So the book is available preferably. I mean, you can get it anywhere that you can buy books, but I prefer bookshop.org, which is it's an online bookstore, and you can name your favorite local bookstore to receive credit for your sale. And so if you don't have a favorite bookstore, you can put it to Books on B in Hayward, Hayward, California. That's my favorite bookstore. But yeah, so it's a really nice way to help keep your bookstores alive. And yeah.
Great. All right, good. So now you've just taught us about this fantastic URL. So we'll put that in the notes as well. We'll put your email in the notes as well. And I want to wish you the very best. And I know we're going to be having more conversations, and I'll look forward to it. So thank you so much for your time today.
Oh, thank you so much for having me on your wonderful podcast. I really enjoyed it. Thank
It's
you.
a pleasure. I'll see you soon.
Okay.